Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and this weekend is our first regionals for the GD02 meta of the Gundam card game here in North America. It's also a little bittersweet because it's the only regional that we have, but I do understand because of the holidays and everything, it's just kind of weird to have that be the case. We were kind of front-loaded at the beginning in October here in North America with regionals, but that means that they're kind of the end of the GD01 format, but also kind of like we are still kind of in the GD01 format if you really want to think of it that way. And that's going to be kind of the point of this video too, is just kind of go over kind of results we've seen the last month. We've seen a lot of events internationally from North America in like Asia, as well as like Oceania, Latin America, and all that stuff. And it's kind of been boiling to the same point where we just really have two decks that were doing very well at the end of GD01, specifically Wing and kind of a blue-green Zeon Aggro deck, right? And now we're still here, you know, a couple months later, and it's pretty much the same call for that, right? There are some kind of differences to it. I also think we like kind of lost the deck where like blue and red, like Cyber New Type was really strong, I think, at the beginning of GD01. It's kind of fallen off since then, and I just kind of going over my thoughts and some tournament results at the same time. So if you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe. We make a lot of content for the Gundam card game, and I don't want you guys to miss it. Also, when we do get results for the regional in Florida, we will be posting it here on Eggman Events, where we do have just a lot of deck lists. We have a lot of events. 3 events we're going to focus on specifically are my own triple win-it box that I did this week. We also had a qualifiers in Tokyo, as well as TAC Games had their Oceania regionals as well. But also, if you go through the tournament deck list, you will see all of these deck lists that we've kind of collected through this. Shout outs to Adrian as well for helping keep this up to date as well. But we just have a lot, and it's a shame because you will see, just even just going through it so quickly, there's a lot of Wing, there's a lot of Zeon Aggro, and they're not everyone that I find, right? Not for nothing, but like there's so many Zeon Aggro decks and Wing Zero decks that kind of pop up. It's really just waiting to, you know, add all of them to the chart when, again, they're very just similar, right? There's only kind of 1 or 2 card differences. And I think kind of the issue, or maybe not issue, but kind of the overarching theme for this format and just pretty much the history of this card game since it released this year is that decks really revolve against 1 or 2 strategies, one of the 2 strategies, if not both of them. And you can really boil it down to 2 things. One, we are playing blockers. It is Ilfrith, it is Dios, it is Ailstrike Gundam, and it is Kira. If you want to, you don't even have to play Kira if you're not, but this is like you either have this complete package or you are an aggressive deck that takes advantage of the power of Amuro and Gundam, or you're some kind of deck that's able to use both of them, right? We've seen a lot of blue-white immediately good right now. And because of that, like that's what I think the main issue is, that these 2 cores of either, again, blue aggro with Amuro is kind of like the headpiece for it, are just blockers. It's just what you have to play right now, and it's been kind of the case for these last 2. And you're going to look through all the decks we're going to go over today and all the decks that exist, and it's really, you have to play one of these engines, right? There's not really a deck that doesn't play white or blue that's very viable right now. We're going to go over one deck that did very well in Tokyo that did not run either of those 2 colors, but with these 2 guys, especially since one Ailstrike Gundam specifically, it's a very generic when paired effect. It's very difficult to get value from that, not get value from that. Kira also is just a generic pilot. It does not matter where you're under, you just get this +2/+1, and sometimes it's a +2/+3 if you want to think about with the, you know, AP -2. And then this is also just any pair, you get the +1 AP, and this is just when paired with anything, right? You're gonna look at like all the cards that have been released and kind of revealed for the last couple sets too, for like Star Deck 3 and, or not Star Deck 3, GD03 and stuff. A lot of these cards are very generic, right? And I think that's kind of what we're moving forward to generically, but a lot of like set 2 stuff, it's like very specific link combos and pairs, and it's not like the effects that they have are bad. It's just really difficult to get value from it consistently when you can just say, I'm going to put Amuro into anything and now I can attack for game, right? That's kind of the big difference for it, I think. So also, I do want to have like a quick tier list in case you guys are curious of what my thoughts are. It's going to be pretty simple. I do think that the best deck in the format right now is green white Wing. I'm not to a point where I don't think it can. I think it's either that or blue green Zeon Aggro, sincerely. And I don't want to be reductive with it, but it's been pretty clear from tournament results it's one of these 2. I personally think it's green white Wing. If you think it's blue green Zeon Aggro, that is your opinion for it, and I don't mind that. You can have your own opinion with it. This is just simply mine. So from there, tier 1, I also will say like blue and purple. It might even be like a half tier below, but blue purple aggro and blue white like Ailstrike Freedom, you know, just blue white good stuff has just been generically still very good and present here as well. I think like obviously blue purple Barbatos kind of falls under an Amuro aggro deck, same kind of thing as blue-green aggro, and then also like blue-white is kind of like both. I'd say it's still kind of still like a blockers deck, but you still are kind of running the Amuro stuff. And then kind of most of like the tier 2 are just like blocker decks that are able to exist in the format because you are running these blockers and letting you get to the later game. So we have seen a little bit more of a success from a Qubeley kind of ping deck with that, Shinanju, Kshatriya. I will say that's kind of the deck that breaks the mold a little bit. You are still running a lot of your blockers early game to get healthier into the late game more successfully, but it is kind of a bit of its own thing. But I still will say that it's a blockers deck. Epyon, same kind of deal as well. We also do have the Justice, which is still a blocker deck, especially at the top end. And then we do have a blue and red kind of Cyber new type, which hasn't been really present. I'm still going to put the end of tier 2 because it's my tier list and it has a sweet spot in my heart. But there's really not much of a reason to play that when you could be playing something like, I think like blue and purple Barbatos kind of has the same kind of feel for it, but still has a little bit more success with it. So this is just where my thoughts are for the tier list. If you guys disagree, you can, but that's just based on, again, all the results that we've had as well. So we do have some deck lists you can go over specifically now too. So if you guys are interested, they're all going to be on my website, Eggman Events, and you're going to see I'm going to have a link to the names of the players that we're going to go over. But real quick, we did have an event here for Eggman Events in top 8. We did have 4 green white wing 0 with one of them winning the event. We did have 2 of the red and white Qubeley. We had a blue white freedom blockers and a blue green Zeon aggro in the top 8. We did have this color breakdown. You're even going to see like blue purple was the most popular color in the event that we ran. And I do know like we did add a 9th place with Abraham's build, who was able to get 9th place with blue purple. So they are around. And honestly, I was looking through it. Most of the X2s that didn't make into the top 8 were blue purple or red white. They were kind of the majority. A little bit of wings as well, but wings are also just sincerely doing very good from there. And we do have some a different variation from there. For the Tokyo event, you're going to see like there were kind of different breakdowns. The way that this event works is a little bit different than what we do in North America. They pretty much have this open field of Swiss. They have a certain amount of rounds, so 8 best of 1 into a top 128 cut from there, and they cut them into 16 pods of 8. And then they're going to play 3 rounds of best of 3 in there until there's one person per pod who's still left undefeated, and that is the person who's going to be the representation from the pod essentially. So they get top 16, but they do it with this kind of this more interesting pod system. So after like Swiss, they have this top 128 here where you see obviously like a lot of wing, and you'll see like wing, it was like 30% of the field essentially ended up being just under 50% of the top to 128, and then of the top 16 it was just over half of it. So we see that increase from there, that it's just a very consistent deck. And then I would also kind of wager that in a best of 3 format it gets better as well compared to a best of 1. So we do also see like green and blue, we do see blue and purple, as well as a green and red deck that we're going to look at in a little bit too, but that's kind of to note. And then TAC Games also had an Oceania Regionals, so there were 296 players, 8 rounds of Swiss best of 1 into this. And so in a best of 1 format, you can see that green and white wasn't as popular, but we did still have it win the event with Vero's build. We did have like a little bit more variety, and still some more of like these red white decks with like Justice blockers and Qubeley ping. We did also have an Epyon, which if you guys look through it, Epyon started off pretty strong at the beginning of this format and then kind of just faded away. And I think a lot of people in Japan were really onto the deck. They thought that the deck was really, really strong, and then it just never kind of got there. And honestly, I think it was to a point where Epyon was only doing well because so many people were on it at the beginning, and it just didn't transition after that. So other than that, I think the other thing is that with products availability as it is, if you don't have access to GD02, I think a lot of people are like, well, my wing deck is still doing very good, or my Zeon aggro deck is still doing very well as well. So they're just kind of sticking with it, which is fair, 100%. For if you think the deck is strong, there's nothing that really gets better throughout the set, there's really not as much of a reason to pick that up, right? And I honestly say, like, outside of like Qubeley ping, getting your Rick Dios's and maybe some additional minor cards, it's not like a very it doesn't synergize very well with where set 1 was as much. Even like wing got some new printed cards, and it's not really using it. There's like the new heavy arms people aren't really using, and it's just interesting to see kind of the evolution or lack thereof going into set 2 for this. So that's kind of my thoughts generically. We're going to look at some deck lists real quick. Again, if you want to see any of them, you can find them on my website. We're going to start off with our first place from our event. And again, these are going to be skewed more to my own event just because I want to show off players who were able to play in it. But if you guys want to see any of the other deck lists, go for it as well. But we're going to look at 2 copies of Wing Zero. First, we got Riccardo and Dennis's version of it. So I would say Riccardo who ended up winning the entire event as well, is a little bit more atypical. I've been calling this more of like a breach build of the deck, right? Kind of the identifier is that we do have the Shang Wu Fei being able to get the protection with breach for not only our Shenlong, right, but being able to use it on your Wing Gundam. You're honestly not too upset with it either, so you do become a 6/6, and you're able to also just not take damage for anything with 3 or less AP with the Shang Wu Fei. We do also have the Hero and Kira, which again, this is a blockers deck, as mentioned. We've got Zawar, Ilfrith, we got the Rictios, and we also have the Ailstrike Gundam. Justice Gundam, I think, has been like more of a Japanese popularity, kind of on the top end for the deck, but still in a good spot here. We obviously have 4 copies of Wing Gundam in our consistency cards of Underground, Desert Base, the Overflowing Affection, and Striker pack. I think there are some room for like Unforeseen Incident or something like that, but this is, a lot of the standard stuff. And then we also do have Dennis's build, where I would say this is pretty dang consistent for what we've been seeing. Most people aren't playing the Death Scythe that is chosen sometimes, but I think more people are just saying, if I can just block her up and stay healthy, I'm just going to be in an okay spot. We do see 3 copies of Unforeseen. We do see 2 copies of the Bird mode to help us ramp a little bit, but again, just with the blockers that we have just to get to the late game, it's just it doesn't look that intimidating, right? You're like, 3 damage isn't that much, and it only hits 5 level 5s or lower, but this card is just so good at getting value in this game right now. I've been really surprised with it. It's not something that I thought was like overwhelming, and it's just been slowly showing its power time and time again, that this does so much, and it's just a really good card that's worth getting to the late game. And there's really nothing that contests with just how good this card is, especially because it's good without a pilot, which I think is also key, and something that we don't see with a lot of other decks as well, is that a lot of other high-end cards are only really good when you have the pilot with it, and since you get Wing Zero without it, you're in a really good spot. So it's really interesting to see that. And you guys already have your opinions for Wing Zeros, but congratulations to Riccardo, Dennis, and all of our Wing Zero players from this past week. We also do have Blayne's version of a blue-green Zeon Aggro, and I don't want to be pedantic when I say like Blayne's version. I really do think that this is a pretty soft deck. It's a very like low to the ground aggro deck. There's not a lot of decision making, and I'm for sure, like, I can't even say for sure that someone hasn't essentially submitted the same deck, right? We are playing a set 2 card, we are playing Hezak, so I do respect the addition of that there instead of the gym there. But yeah, obviously this is the idea of the set 1, right? I think the only differences are not playing Show of Resolve, where instead of playing 2 more bases with the white base, which I can respect this, right? This kind of helps you generate a card draw, and then for an extra 2 resources. So it's either you spend you Show of Resolve to be able to spend 3 to draw 2, or you spend 4 off white base to be able to draw 1, and then also be able to make like a token, which could be a 3/3, 2/2, etc. And that kind of extra tempo could be just in your favor for that. And the fact that it does have the burst effect can help you in its own ways too. So I think like having 6 bases in an aggressive deck like this is not terrible. I do think Corsica base is still the better base of the 2, and I think obviously they agree because they're running 4, but being able to make your 4/2s and also your 1/1s for helping you end the game just helps you a lot. But sincerely, this is an Amuro aggro deck, right? Because we have Amuro, we have the Gundam. It doesn't matter what we put it in. Sometimes you put Amuro in the Rick Dom, and then you're able to attack into the thing you rested, and you still get to breach 2, and then you're just in a really good spot, and that's difficult to deal with. And then obviously Char being able to just be your last attack for game, consistent with any of your Zaku 2s, or at least Char Zaku 2s. I think that's understood. So not much more to say, but here's Blayne's deck, and there it is. Next up, we've got Z's build of a blue-white freedom blockers, and blue-white's just been like a really interesting like color combination, and it's weird because I kind of have mentioned, right? We either have like these blocker heavy decks with Zawart and Dios, and then we have also Ailstrike and the Kira. We also do have like the Amuro and Gundam, right? And this one is a little bit more atypical, or a standard, I would say, since we are playing a little bit more of the Academy focus. I've seen this before, and it's not outrageous, but it's something that is like a little flavor add, right? We do have a GD02 card that's not named Rick Dios in this deck. It is the Gundam Aerial Rebuild, which is still a good focus for the deck. It does get value without having a pilot, for it just generically does have high maneuver, which is nice. Having to be paired for the blocker effect is kind of tough at times, but not too terrible, and it's pretty easy for you to generate those blockers as well. We do have a lot of commands in the deck. I have seen also an uptick in naval bombardment as it's just kind of an action card to help you get trades when your opponent's not expecting it. So this has been a cool ad where this card is, I would say, pretty mediocre for the majority of GD01, but now just because of how focused our blockering, how focused we are on blockers, it's cool to see this get a bit of a rise is there too. So also the burst effect is like an unforeseen incident, so that is nice. And in all, right, like it's a very interesting build for how this works. And I will never say that this deck is like the worst deck because we have so many tools. I still think Freedom Gundam 2, just being a 4/6 blocker without any additional pieces, is just a really strong card too, generically without a pilot. But it feels like this is like the master of none, which is right. Like you can survive against aggro, but like Wing can have like sometimes like a better late game than you, and like the fact that you still have to like you generate a lot of value, but you're a little slow to do so at times, right? Again, like you're really flexible at what you get to do with like this color combination, but at the same point, you're not like the master of anything. Sometimes, like I guess you're like the master at blocking sometimes, but you know what I mean. Like it's tough to really it's sometimes I feel like I'm doing everything right with this deck and I'm still not getting there, which is weird. So I don't have much more to say. This is Z's build. Congratulations for their victory, or their top 8 with a blue and white freedom blockers. We also do have a couple of red-white decks. So we have David Lee's version of a Qubeley ping, and this is definitely a deck that's gotten a lot more I think relevance. I think it's like really the only like GD02 deck that's really emerged. Blue and purple, like Barbatos is technically like a star deck 5 deck if you really want to be pedantic about it. I still think it's a GD02 deck, but I would say this is the one where, yeah, clearly we have this Qubeley. It's a very strong card from GD02 that can get a lot of value. I think the issue with this is that, one, you do need a pilot in some regard, right? But the effects for it is generally pretty great. It's probably the best like suppression unit that we have right now, but I also think that it is tough to still get suppression when there's so many blockers that exist, but it's still, I think it's better than Barbatos because this can also like potentially get rid of a blocker that was preventing you from doing your suppression, which is nice. Shinanju's also been very good for being able to just have like a great 2 damage. So there's a lot of times where you can just play this on 6 even without a pilot, and then on the next turn you can attack with this, deal 2 damage to something, and then you have the Qubeley to get the removal. Both these on the board just have great synergies, and even with like the Kshatriya as well, right? There's so many good synergies that these cards get to use. It's just like a really good late game kind of control spot for it. So I think that's something that's important for this kind of color combination. And we obviously we don't run as many blockers for this deck too, so I'd still say that this is like a blocker deck, and the fact that we are running the the Rictios, we're playing 6 level 3 pilots, but this is less so than we've seen. But we are also playing the Striker pack, so maybe that doesn't really count. We are playing like a lot of commands though. We got Close Combat, Battle of Aces, and All Range Attack. I still don't know how I feel about this card. If you are finding success from it, you should use it 100%, but it is surprising. It's also surprising that we're not seeing any copies of Overflowing Affection, especially since we're running 10 pilots, but I digress. And we also have the Relula as well. So I think this is the base. I've tried Shuji's Hideout before, but I think this one's just probably a little bit better in the spot here. But it is cool to see Qubeley do well in this format. I think like the biggest thing though is like you're going to see these 2 boss monsters, right? We have Qubeley and Shinanju, and both these, if my opponent says, well, I have Amuro, I'm just going to attach it and then attack over this because they're 5 HP. Unless like you preemptively put like a pilot underneath it, that's not the right one. You're not going to get like the full value for it. And then obviously for Shinanju, like it's nasty that you can just say, well, I'm going to just Ale Strike, and then you lose 5 cost worth of like tempo because I decided to attach a pilot to a unit that already was really good. So I don't know. I think that's kind of like a tough thing to say. Sometimes you do have to preemptively do that to help you get out of it. Now, obviously, if you put full frontal in this becomes a 7/6, which is like pretty immune to like a lot of immediate effects in the game. So that does help. It's just I'm very bad at drawing full frontal or Char. Like anything that's relating to Char, I'm very bad at drawing. So it's never going to be me. So, but this is a cool build, and definitely red white Qubeley I think has been more and more popular. And we also have like the OG red white where we have Justice. So this is Brian's version of the build here from the TAC Games event that happened. And I will think it's also interesting to see this Aegis Gundam get a little bit more popular too. It's just very divisive for me, where if this unit has 5 or more AP, choose one unit that's level 5 or higher, deal 3 damage to it. So if you're playing something like blue white blockers are, if you're playing against like a wing deck, this does get a lot of incremental damage. If you're playing against like the blue green Zeon Aggro, you're not getting any damage off this, right? Like everything just like they're playing a level 4 at highest, right? There's no level 5s that really go into that deck, so it's still like a weird sweet spot, but I think it does hit against more decks consistently, so it's still a good add. Atherin is like not too terrible of a pilot, since you also get like the justice effect here. You do get your famous 6-7 stat line there, so you do help with that one. We do have the rest of the deck. We do have the Kira and the full frontal. We did get like again a coordinator like link target for both of these from set 2, but no one's ends up using it still, right? Like I think that's still interesting. Like there's so many like incremental cards that added to GD02 that just no one's really using. It's the Buster Gundam here, right? So if this unit has 5 or more AP, it gets blocker, and then the fact that if you can link with the coordinator trait. But I guess the issue is that like if you, I don't know, I'd feel so pressured to play it sometimes. Like Atherin, like just having a link for it is good enough in some situations, right? And being able to turn it to a blocker, you don't even have to like link, like you can still put full frontal in it too. So I'd be really tempted if I was kind of looking at more justice builds to maybe include those cards or see if they got any value. But that full aside, I think there is like a lot of value from Shinanju. Justice Gundam as our late end. They don't really need pilots. They obviously really appreciate it, but Shinanju still gets to do it without the pilot. And then Justice Gundam, just making a token by itself is good in its own way. So I've always been happy with Justice. I've always been one of my favorite units, so it's been cool to see it get more and more play as well. And they also just have like the OG LR Aegis Gundam get some support and love there too. So here's a build here. Congratulations to Brian for their top with the Justice Gundam. And then we've got also the blue-white Epyon. So again, Epyon I think was very popular in Japan off the get-go, and I think it just ends up being Epyon's a very famous mech in the Gundam. I don't know what do you want to call it, in the mobile suit in the show. I want to call it a character. He's not a character. I didn't want to call it a unit. Regardless, a mobile suit that's really important in the Gundam Wing show. And so because of that, a lot of people are trying to make this sound, and it's a cool card, right? The fact that you become a 6/6 during link, you get to restand, so you can attack more than once, right? You do have to link with Zex Marquise, so you has to be specifically this one because it's the only Zex that exists in the game right now. So it's kind of like, I would say that it's very similar to Gundam Unicorn, which I would say was moderately popular for the majority of the GD01 format, but just completely fell off in GD02. And so with kind of like that, the fact that, Unicorn is really kind of a 3-card combo, Epyon's like a little bit later, but it's a 2-card combo. You do get a lot of benefits from specifically, this becoming an 8 AP and 7 HP unit that can attack more than once. I think the only issue is that sometimes like you just have to still like be down trading with something. The fact that it can't trade cleanly with a wing 0 with hero underneath it is canonically accurate, but still kind of upsetting. So it's just like sometimes even with 7 HP, it's difficult for you to be able to get like the full value of this card. And sometimes like even though it's like a level 8 and you've been kind of drawing cards for 8 turns, sometimes you just don't see it, and it just kind of sits in your hand as like a mediocre 6/6 that you play out, and then you just still lose next turn. So I don't know. I've been really trying to get Epyon to work. I do think like obviously it's still the same thing. It's a blocker deck. You're still playing Gundam on Amuro, right? Because it does get you a lot of like cycle and stuff, and being able to get like Gundam Amuro can just earn you the like early game and all the momentum for you, and then you can kind of safely get to the late game a little bit more consistently. But it's, I don't know, like this is still like to me like a blue-white good stuff deck, because again, it has some of the best cards in the game right now, but I digress. And then we do have 2 more decks. So we do have the Abraham's build of blue-purple Barbatos. So I do think like this is probably the best way to play purple right now, is that you are playing just a blue aggressive deck and you're just adding a couple purple cards, specifically Fatal Strike, which I thought at the beginning of this format, and even as recently a couple weeks ago, that 4 was too many. I think that's incorrect. I think you can run 4 pretty haphazardly. You are going to be pretty okay with finding value with this. Even if it's a 1-for-1, being able to get the tempo is generally just okay. If you're ahead on curve, which you likely will be because you're going to be playing these level 2s, you will still like really benefit the fact that you do just cleanly answer whatever your opponent played on the early game, which is good. Mikazuki is also, I'd say like, if Amuro and Kira are the first 2 best pilots in the game, this has like contention to be the 3rd best pilot, just because it's again very, very generic. It just says when paired, just choose 1/1, right? It's going to be like the same thing as Amuro, where even if there are decks where you're not playing a lot of things that link with it, you're still just okay to play the Mikazuki, and to the point where you're just probably always going to play the Gundam Barbatos first form with it until we get better Gundams to link with it. This just saying, you know what, I'm a 3-2, and then sometimes I get to draw one. Sometimes I get to get rid of a regular base by linking Mikazuki for it and get some like good trade potential for it. And we are also getting more ways to like ping our own units consistently to maybe get this draw. Otherwise, we have also like the Gundam Gujan Rebake here, which is able to like give a damage to it, and then you can attack as like a 3-1, but you still get the draw, so it's worth it. So yeah, I think like this deck is still very good. Again, it's still off the back that Amuro is a really good pilot and Gundam is a very good unit, and using them together just helps you out quite a bit. So that is the build here from Abraham. Congratulations for their 9th place. I'm sorry for your tiebreakers on that one though. And lastly, we do have Saruru with their build of, I'd say, like this green-red Neo Zeon with like this wing stuff. It's a very interesting build, and I did some testing with it myself, and the only conclusion I was really able to draw from it is that is a deck that I would likely not bring to a tournament, but I can see where there could be power from this one, right? Specifically saying like the Kshatriya and Shinanju are just really good pilots. They are moderately generic on what you get to link with or get like the paired effects for, but you obviously want to get your main effects with them too. So Wing Gundam, I feel like sometimes was a bit expensive, especially since we are playing already 4 copies of the Shinanju, but it does help you. Close combat, I think, has been pretty solid in this format in general to help you win the early game. We have like the Kshatriya, we've got the Mining Asteroid, we've got the Vesalius, and just kind of the rest of the deck too. So we are running 11 pilots, which is quite a bit, and there are some times where I'm like, it's the mid game and I have really nothing to do, which is kind of tough, but also sometimes in the late game we just get a lot of values from just how good these kind of late game like level 6 units can be, and to just apply pressure as well. So not much more to say. I think this is a really interesting build, and just it's, I think sincerely, and I have to double check outright, but at least for like large events, I think it's like the only deck that's done well that isn't playing a blue or white color, right? So there aren't that many color combinations for what we have with only 5 colors in the game, but strictly saying that like any a deck that just doesn't run either Amuro or Kira, like that's like the few that exist sincerely for this kind of meta as we see it. So I think it was kind of worth mentioning, but that's gonna be it for me. I don't want to be like kind of a downer for what this meta is currently seeming, and maybe we're wrong, maybe we're going to see some other stuff. And I've been, I would say, one of the people who have been like, I want to test a bunch of stuff, I want to see if there's anything that we've missed or there's something else, but it really just kind of does seem to be, again, unchanging to mostly just blue green Zeon Aggro and Wing, and those are just going to be the best decks in the format still in the second set. So that's kind of my opinions. I hope I'm wrong, but we're going to see what we're going to see in Florida. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts in this meta as well, and we can see some GD03 stuff in the future as they've been revealed as well too. So that's gonna be it for me. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you all next time.